How he's doing? Today is a good day. There was an anti-lockdown march, two of them actually, events in Dublin yesterday, and they were special. They were special for lots of reasons, and I'll explain to you why in a minute, why they were special, and also why they have laid the groundwork for what needs to be done going forward. Okay. Now, firstly, I want to apologise. I was very skeptical about people protesting for the reasons I'll explain during the course of this video. But this is different. The activists, the anti-mask, anti-lockdown activists who showed up in Dublin yesterday, broke finally the left-right spell in this country, and were there for all the right reasons, and not because they were fulfilling a political mandate or a political objective. They were there simply demanding their freedom. This has not happened in Ireland for probably a century, and the Irish activists I saw there had a body language and a confidence about them that hasn't been seen in this country probably since ancient Celtic times, or before, since the time of Cuchulainn and all those people. It was like I was beholding a new type of Irish person, and many Polish people among them. Now, when I got home from work yesterday and switched on the PC and started to look at the news on my news feed and social media, the first thing I saw was a video of the event outside the Mansion House, or outside the Customs House in Dublin along the river, very well attended, lots of Irish flags, and front and centre was some doofus holding a Palestinian flag. It was an absolute disgrace. He should have been told to leave. Not violently or anything like that, but we don't know who he is, whether he was another one of these left-wing muppets who thinks that Irishness is somehow tied up with the Middle East. This is why I'm not a Christian, because I know where my spiritual roots lie. They don't lie in Palestine or the Middle East. Also, he could have been an infiltrator. He could have been sent there to do that deliberately. He was wearing dark sunglasses, so he couldn't be identified. And these have to be stopped. So I was a bit depressed when I saw that, and I said, I can't believe it. But then I was heartened to see the majority of the comments on the video saying, what the hell is a Palestinian flag doing at an Irish event? So after years of me telling you this, to divorce Palestinian issues, Arab Muslim issues, and don't give me this thing about they're all Christians. The whole trajectory over there of the issue they have is basically jihad. That's why you had Islamic Jihad and Hamas front and centre. So don't give me that, okay? Secondly, it's part of the watering down process. This is what the establishment in Ireland are absolutely terrified of. Irish people being Irish. It absolutely terrifies them. And it terrifies them because they haven't got the excuse to say, well, look, they're a bunch of ethno-nationalists, when right beside them are thousands of Polish people who instinctually, by their own terrible history that they've suffered under communism and fascism, know exactly what's being done to people in Ireland right now. And that's why they rallied around beside us. As George Washington once wrote a statement about the Irish in America, and he said, who are the first to rally around our flag when we unfurled it? The people who instinctively knew what we were fighting for. Erin's generous sons. Well, now it's happening in Ireland. Who instinctively knows what the frustration is of the Irish activist when he's trying to defend his children from the likes of Roderick O'Gorman and Peter Tatchell, when he's trying to defend his right to have a job and go to work during a lockdown for a fake pandemic that should have never happened, to maintain the dignity of wearing a mask on his face, but Poland's generous sons and daughters. So as an Irish person, I salute the Polish people involved in yesterday's events, and I'm extremely proud and delighted to have you here amongst us on their nation, because you're absolutely phenomenal people. And it was just beautiful to see. you not only you not only give Irish people an extra sense of moral courage to stand up against fascism and international Soviet, whatever this thing is, they critical Marxism, and but you also prove that the people involved in these protests are not a bunch of yahoos who are hate foreigners because they gladly accept the Polish alongside them and the other Eastern Europeans that showed up and the other nationalities who were there for the right reasons. Now, that was an Irish fellow waving the Palestinian flag as usual, by the way. Now, there were some events yesterday, a melee, shall we say, outside, and there was two marches, there was two protests, one at Customs House Quay on the river, and another one across the other side of town, outside government buildings at Leinster House. Outside government building at Leinster House was a very interesting group. It had a kind of a football kind of dynamic about it, and you don't normally see that in Ireland. It was really amazing to see. But I'm not saying they were hooligans or anything like that. They were very well behaved and totally peace loving until, just like their forefathers did in 1947, when they used to stand in the windows of Trinity College and hold glasses of Pimm's number one, going, "You dirty papists, you filthy, filthy Fenians," to the Irish on the streets. Their descendants today came from the direction of Trinity College with their posh accents again, calling these working class people who just want to get on with their lives far right and Nazis. Now, all that happened was the group of Irish people walked towards them chanting, uh, "Pedo scum, get off the streets." I don't know if that has anything to do with me in my recent video telling Irish activists to turn it right back around on them. If they call you Nazis because you don't want to wear a mask in order to try and stigmatize you, you turn it right around and you point out that they're pedophiles and pedophile apologists and give it right back to them and see how they like it. Well, they didn't like it at all when they got their asses handed to them on a plate. Of course, the cops came along, and the same ones in Antifa and the same lefties in Ireland who are wanted to fund the police expected the guards to protect them. The irony of that. The guard obviously were not stupid and pushed them away. Now, one of them looks like he has blood all over his face, and it looks, I don't know if it's a real attack. I didn't see any video of anyone being attacked, but the blood looked like it was straight out of the RTE Special Effects Department, as fake and as tacky as their fake and tacky news. That's what it looked like. If he got injured and someone deliberately punched him or something, yes, he should press charges, of course. We don't want anyone in our movement to be violent. Well, when I say our movement, in it's not a movement as such as our Irish people in these situations to be violent. If they come along shouting them down and waving flags is enough. That intimidates them enough. They're cowards and they're pussies. And if someone hit him, I hope he presses charges. That was wrong. But I want to see proof he was hit. I want to see the hospital, because there was enough blood on his face to suggest that he was seriously gashed on the head and would require stitches. There has to be a hospital record of those stitches. If he can't produce them, if he doesn't press charges, if there's no video of a direct attack, then we have to assume it's not real. If someone did attack him and we can prove it, well, then he presses charges and he can produce the hospital record with stitches. Well, then fair enough, he has every right to do that. When I saw the protesters shouting down Antifa and the lefties, I didn't see any violence. I just saw them shouting back. You see, this is what they're like. They'll call you every name in the world, but if you call them a name back, they go crying to their mammies or the police that they want to defund. So again, I'm not a left wing. I'm not a right wing. I just want Ireland to move back to a centrist position. That's all. That's what I'm looking for. Right now, it's extreme leftist, globalist, Soviet sort of fascist corporate run at the moment. Billionaires running the country that don't even live here or pay taxes here. I just want us to move back to the centre, okay? I don't want us to abolish gay rights. I don't want us to abolish divorce or anything, abortion. I want it moved back to the centre, okay? Right now, the ultimate trajectory of the left in around the world right now is to gain sexual access to your children, and this is they have made this from everything that disgusting new Netflix series to everything. You know, the pride marches in Dublin having Peter Tatchell there, a guy who openly promotes pedophilia, and they have the audacity to say that they're not in favour of that. And we see the Green Party's history is nothing but paedophilia, and they're in government in Ireland. And their Green minister, the first thing he does is to start involving themselves with the sexualization of children, reducing gender choice, transitioning to the earliest stage you could possibly get away with. They cannot keep away from our kids. They are obsessed with getting their hands on them to mutilate them or to have sex with them. And it must end now. We must remove back to a centrist position. Now, I know the face mask and that thing is two different things, but ultimately it comes from the same group of people. They're people that know there's fundamentally something not right with the world right now, and they're told that they're called all kinds of names if they have a problem with it. They're supposed to just shut up and accept it. You know, that's the whole thing. You point out that there's a swarm of paedophiles involved in Irish government and paedophile apologists in Irish government, and you're called a homophobe, even though many of the people who are doing this are actually gay. See, this is the beauty of what's happening right now in Ireland. There's gay people, and there's people of all different races and religions who just want their freedom, and they finish off they get back to the centre, to a sane central thing. The reason why they're constantly called right is because the establishment is absolutely desperate to maintain the left-right paradigm. Now this, although I'm talking here in the Irish context, I'm laying out rules here that I know will work based on kind of like Saul Alinsky. Now, I was reading Saul Alinsky when most of you didn't even know that there was a globalist mandate running the world. And Saul Alinsky's stuff was very successful because it works. And that's things like you're seeing right now is a result of that. Now, what his rules of radicals, I'm proposing a rule for counter radicals that can be used against that. Now, what those people in Dublin yesterday discovered when they ran, see the confidence in their body language and the sense of self of what they are and who they represent was magnificent. They discovered just by going shouting pedo scum off the streets, that was an act of chaos magic, by the way. That's why I told you to do that, because they weren't ready for that one. Now, at the same time in Dublin, with these two anti-lockdown events going on, there was, and to see the people at the anti-lockdown events was beautiful. They were working and middle-class Irish people. There was no Trustafarians banging bongos and smelling of cannabis. There was no cannabis psychotics walking around dressed like Bob Marley, going, yeah, man, peace and love, without actually pointing out that Bob Marley himself was an ethno-nationalist, was also an Abrahamic religious fanatic, and a bullet-ridden gangbanger. And but there was none of them there. There was no troubadours of the establishment singing "I shall be released" or some other pissy stupid folk song. Redemption song by Bob Marley. You see, this is how they've always taken over things in the past. It was just regular Irish people, and a whole lot of Polish people there with them too, and other groups as well. But it was the body language of them, the sense of confidence was just gorgeous to look at. It was delicious. It's something I've never seen in Ireland. Our protests were always lefties. Now, we got very, very close to getting that with the water charges protest, but that was infiltrated. And the rest of this discussion I'm going to talk about. If you want to do this in Ireland and in other countries, this is the rules for counter radicals, okay? Number one, do not call politicians by their first names. This was a gigantic mistake the Irish made in the water protest charges, holding up signs with the first names of politicians as if they were our mates and were begging them for something. These people are your servants. They're your employees. They are not there to be begged. You do not call them by their first names. There is nothing more horrifying to a politician than you addressing them in a formal, cold manner, because that means they haven't duped you and pulled the wool over your eyes by making you think that you're their mates. Okay, that spell seems to be finally getting broken in Ireland. This new generation of activists, like we had at the anti-mask events, were not calling politicians by their first names. The water protest things in Ireland failed because of that, number one. Number two, infiltrators swinging it off. There was an attempt there, possibly with that Palestinian flag, to do that at the customs house. These people must be watched. Same with anyone who shows up at bongos, white guys with dreadlocks, this kind of thing. All these types, get rid of them. They are deliberately put in there to make it look as farcical as possible. The protests in London were a joke. The anti-mask post, like even though what's his name, David Icke gave a brilliant speech, that protest was a fucking joke. And don't tell me it wasn't. I know your feelings are probably being hurt by it, but Trafalgar Square was full of the bongo bangers, Tarquin. Ooh, freedom, ooh, and then fellas with bicycles and fucking badges and flag, like fucking all kinds of misfits and oddballs. And it's the usual rent the protest types. Get rid of them. If you have to shout them out, get them out. That they are deliberately part of a Saul Alinsky attempt to deflate the tensions of the activists. Another thing they try to do is to try to take your genuine activism and turn it in anger, by the way, and turn it into a family fun day. We got that with the water protests and also with the anti-fracking protests. People genuinely are annoyed and wanting to deal with these issues. Suddenly, posters shows up going, "Activism Family Fun Day," and you have face painting, jugglers, clowns. You see, and they want you to bring your kids along too. And the reason why they want you to bring your kids along is because you'll be less likely to do what happened outside Leinster House yesterday if you have your kids with you. Go activism, keep the kids at home, okay? Then you're free of that burden of protecting your child. They want the family fun day at the activism events, so you bring your kids, so you're not going to start any shit like shout down Antifa like happened yesterday. No, but so keep the kids at home, separate the two things. As soon as someone shows up saying, "I have a great idea for the next anti-mask thing, let's have a family fun day with face painting and jugglers," throw them out, instantaneously banish them. Another one at a state-sanctioned protesters and radicals. In Ireland, it's a guy called Brendan Ogle. Hi, Brendan. You and I have crossed paths many times over the years, right back to my days, my own activism days. And I saw what you right where when you were supposedly a train driver out of Athlone who started, and then suddenly you're a big shot union leader with after your microphone in your face every 5 minutes. I saw what you did at the Moore Street events when people were trying to save the houses where our ancestors basically fought for our freedom and surrendered because innocent civilians were being killed. Your speech spoke about the diversity of the rebels, while your front page was full of "let's flood Ireland full of Syrians." Now, I have no problem with Syrian refugees. I know what happened there is atrocious. That issue was not related to that. You spun it off like you did with the water protest. Spin it off, right? You're not going to get away with this anymore, Brendan. Sorry, you've been found out. The wrong kinds of people have crossed your path. We're not dumb lefty assholes, okay? Now, another thing is also another reason they co-opt that is so the likes of the establishment can use it. Now, in Ireland, that traditionally means that the trade unions will take over an activism thing and spin it around so they can get more pay rises for government employees. Fuck the rest of you, as long as the civil servants, the government trade unions, the establishment trade unions, SIP to Impact, all get their quote-unquote gravy and their entitlements. They don't give a fuck about people working in supermarkets or cleaning sewers or anything else that don't have a government or union job. They've all, now. Do you remember 10 years ago they had an event in Dublin, "Give Labour the Red Card," and it was tried to make out that it was a Labour event where working class people were sick of being laid about. No, that was about civil servants holding up the red card because Labour didn't get them their gravy because the country was collapsing. And they wanted they still expected their massive pay rises with their jobs for life and pensions, even though the country was bankrupt. And that's what that was. It wasn't the average person who was losing their home or job. You've been found out. Go away. Never come back. Okay? We know who you are now. We don't call politicians by our first names. We don't care about the labour movement in Ireland because you don't care about anyone who isn't a government employee or a trade union member. And C, shove your family fun days up your ass. Okay? That's the third one. Another one that's an amazing thing that they do also is to try to cause trouble amongst the group. I told you last time that they will find a person who the lefties have always done this. Get an autistic person, give them a microphone, and tell them to shout certain things and dress them a certain way because they look like lunatics. And then they'll put them into your crowd to make them look like they're one of you. Take these people and compassionately move them to one side. You're not a lefty. You have human decency and dignity. And you treat these people with kindness and respect. Remember, the left is not about the poor and the working class. The left is about international socialism, international communism. And if your country and your work, your job and your community has to be sacrificed for that red flag with the hammer and sickle, they will do it. They've always done it. And that's why our Polish friends are on our side in spades. They've seen the tactics used in Poland and they're trying to use them here. Now, at the same time there was these two events in Dublin, there was an anti-fascist event, which they tried to market as, you see, you're against the face mask and the lockdown, you're a Nazi. That's how they work it, right? So, I don't even think 100 showed up on O'Connell Street. They were all standing in their social distancing safe squares with their little masks on them. And then they tried to talk, the people for profit. The audacity of this group, People for Profit, to claim they care about the Debenham workers who were left off. Firstly, I don't give a fuck about the Debenham workers that were left off. And I'll tell you why. Because hundreds of thousands of people in this country have lost their job. And they want you to focus on one particular department store. Okay? When the reality is, it's the majority of people have lost their jobs, no one will remember them. Okay? So you don't give a fuck about Debenham. So you give a fuck about your job that you lost. Okay? Secondly, the audacity of people for profit outside Irish towns a few years ago had signs saying, "Refugees welcome, no fortress Europa." Now, the real reason you have immigration, let me tell you why Ireland allows in immigrants and your country allows in immigrants. It's not because they care about Syrian refugees. It's none of that stuff. There's several issues for them. They don't care about the immigrants. In fact, they hate them because they see them as useful idiots they can move into your country to increase competition for minimum wage jobs, lower the price lower the labour cost, so the costs go down and the profits of corporations go up. Well, that's why they flood your country with immigrants, so the establishment and the rich in your country can get cheap access to labour. That's the only reason they do it. They just use those people. It's a modern form of left-wing corporate slave trade. That's really what it is. And it's not the fault of the immigrants who are here in your country. It's the problems with the establishment who brought them in. This is why you never pick on the immigrants. You don't pick on them. You point the finger at the ones who have the power and who made it happen. Again, the left-right thing, it doesn't really matter. You look at the government in Ireland right now, it's made up of a coalition of three parties. Fianna Fáil, traditionally right-wing conservative Irish Nationalist Party, spends all its time now talking about anyone who wants to be Irish independence to be toxic nationalist. Fine Gael, a once openly fascist party that used to do the Nazi salutes and everything, now the kings and queens of woke. And the Green Party, a party that's not even Irish, it's German, and its mandate originally built upon pedophilia. The in Irish government right now is you have the middle right, the far right, and the far left in a coalition. And they have the right to talk to the rest of us about left and right when they don't even practice it themselves. Because ultimately, all they just are CEOs and the branch managers for the globalists. That's all they are. That's why you're locked down. That's why you're forced to wear a mask. No other reason. They're just administrators. That's all they are. And how they can sit there calling themselves patriots and nationalists is beyond me. It's absolutely beyond me. At the same time, they talk about toxic nationalism. It's like they try to they try to equate caring about your freedom with being a Nazi. That's the new one they news now. So these are the rules going forward. I just gave them to you, right? Don't call politicians by their first names ever again. Address them in a formal, cold manner. Do not, under any circumstances, allow infiltrators to take over your movement in the form of the traditional state-sanctioned people in this country, the Christy Moores to sing a song on the stage about it, or the Glenn Hansards, or the Brendan Ogles with the unions to try and see how they can use it for their gravy. And family fun days, they want you to bring your kids along because they know you won't cause any trouble. You won't scream and shout obscenities at perverts like the ones that showed up on the street yesterday in Dublin. And don't be bothered if they call you homophobic or anything like that, because I know loads of gay people who are against who are on the side of the anti-mask, anti-lockdown people. And we're on the sides of the ones outside the government buildings yesterday, not the bunch of poshies from Trinity College who came down to call them Nazis. Things have changed big time. And yesterday I saw a ray of hope in Ireland. I mean, especially when I saw pictures of protests from like London and Calgary and Edmonton and everywhere else. And it was the usual Trustafarian bongo hippies, these types, what happened in Ireland yesterday is monumental in Dublin. What happened? It was just Ireland and Polish immigrants and saying, you're not going to get away with this one, you bastards. And it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I could not believe what I was seeing. To see Irish people with that kind of confidence and self-awareness of knowing they're in the right, it was just beautiful. Now, if I have any complaints about it, my issues with Christianity. I'm a pagan. Irish people were never meant to be, Second Temple rabbinical Jews. And the Vatican did this to us. It was the Vatican who handed our country over to the English crown. And, basically the perverts on the left who are after children now are continuing on what the Catholic priest did before that. My attitude is, if you're religious, keep it to yourself. If you're a devout Catholic, keep it to yourself. Because I even saw one post justify the Palestinian flag at the event at the Customs House yesterday as saying they're from the land of Christianity, the same God that gave Ireland their friend. Go fuck off, okay? Just fuck off with that shite. That's bullshit. The same fucking crap over and over again. So just keep all that stuff to you. If you're a devout Christian, keep it to yourself, or Muslim or Jew, whatever, and you're on the side against the lefties, keep it to yourself. And I'm a pagan too. I keep it to myself. I don't go around judging other people saying I'm a pagan, join me or else. You'll never see me saying a Hail Odin at the end of an event. So please don't pull out a rosary beads and say an Angelus or a decade of the rosary, please. This is not about that. This is about bringing Ireland back to the centre, not pushing us all the way back to 1950. Right now, right now. Things are fundamentally wrong in this country at a psychosocial level, and it's because people who are running this country only have the needs and the agendas of the globalists in hand, and they're disgraceful, people, and they don't care about the Irish, they don't care about the immigrants, they don't care about anyone, especially the working class. They think you're scum. So if they think you're scum, never call them by their first names ever again. Thanks very much. Bye.